podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Happy Friday, everyone. You have made it to your weekend. Congratulations. As you may realize, I am not Matt O'Hayan, nor am I the great Tony Marinaro. I am, in fact, producer Shayne here at Master Control, filling in for Matt, who is in an undisclosed location, I think, at a music festival somewhere. We hope he's enjoying himself. We're enjoying ourselves because training camp is underway. Today was day 3, second day on the ice. And the guest that we're about to bring on was there for both days on the ice at CN Sports Complex. But before we bring him in, as you know, this show would not be possible without our fantastic sponsors. And I want to start by thanking Energy Transportation Group. They are a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America. They are driven to be different. And of course, how can I forget? La Bittt at Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer perfect for the hot summer day like we had today. I mean, it's September, dear God. With only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% ABV per can. Available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores and C-stores all around the province of Quebec. Ultra light, ultra refreshing. All right, let's bring him in. He is Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette. Stu, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Nice to have hockey back, and full house in Brossard today and yesterday for the scrimmages. Parking lot was full. The stands were full, so I imagine it'll be even more busy tomorrow when they scrimmage again at 11:15. So for people who might be thinking about going out there, get there early and don't wear shorts and a t-shirt because it's pretty chilly in that rink, and there were a lot of cold fans there today.
That it is. No other team does it like the Habs fans. No. Let me tell you, that is, without question, the most dedicated fan base. You mentioned to me before we went on there that they sold out 2 rookie games.
Yep.
Sold out 20,000 people. You know what I mean? No one does it like you guys. Best fans.
I hope they make that an annual tradition, that rookie showdown, because that was a huge success on many fronts. First of all, tickets were as cheap as $10. So I know I live in Brossard. I took the REM into the game, and you saw lots of families and kids with their Canadiens gear, people who can't afford to take, the average family can't afford to go to a game at the Bell Center. They raised a lot of money for charity. The money from the tickets I went to the Canadiens Children's Foundation. Fans got a chance to see what the Bell Center is like when it's full. Again, those who can't afford to go during the regular season. And the young players got a chance to experience what it's like to play in front of a full Bell Center as opposed to rookie tournaments before that were held in Buffalo or somewhere in front of a few hundred people. So hopefully they make this an annual tradition. The red versus white game, which was an annual tradition, they're not having that this year. So hopefully they do continue with this rookie tournament and make it an annual event, because I think it was just the games were entertaining. It was fun, and it was just a really, really cool event.
It really was. I was there for both games as well. Blown away for players that haven't played an NHL game for the most part to fill up an arena. It's unbelievable.
Well, you can argue a rookie camp game is more entertaining than a preseason game too, because these guys are all fighting either to get an invitation to the main camp, for one, to make the Canadiens. That's all their dream, but also to make Laval. I mean, there's so many young prospects on this team, and there's so much talent out there, and that's why those games, I think, were as entertaining as they were.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned there, 2 days on the ice for the Habs, having little scrimmages between themselves. they're divided into 3 groups, right?
Mhm.
Today was group 2 and 3 going against each other, and you were there for both games, or scrimmages, as I
Yep.
should say. So let's start with the positive. I think that's what people want to hear most, right? And I'm sure there's a ton of it. I want to get your takes. Which players caught your eye the most? Who stood out the most for you yesterday and today?
Well, today, Brendan Gallagher really stood out. He was flying all over the ice. I saw him at the golf tournament. He looked leaner than he has been in the past. Maybe he changed his offseason workout regimen. We don't know yet because we haven't been able to talk to him yet. Excuse me. He didn't speak to the media at the golf tournament. And yesterday we got team 1 for interviews. Today we got team 2, and tomorrow we'll get team 3. So we'll be able to speak to Gallagher then. It was interesting too because going into camp we knew that Suzuki, Slafkovsky, and Cole Caulfield would be the number 1 line. We were pretty certain Dach between Newhook and Laine would be the second line, and that's exactly what they were on Thursday. And then today with team 3 we got a chance to see what the other 2 lines could look like when the season starts. You can put them either line 3 and 4 or line 3A and 3B or line 4A and 4B, however you want to put it. But it was Evans between Gallagher and Armia. 3 right-hand shots, which had Gallagher playing on his off wing on the left side, which is something Marty St. Louis said he liked as a player himself, and he thinks it will help Gallagher. And then the other line was Dvorak between Joshua Waugh and Josh Anderson. And Joshua Waugh is another player who really stood out to me. He stood out to me ever since he's come to the Canadiens. He's just so smart with the puck. He rarely makes a mistake with the puck. And you go back to the World Juniors when he was on a line with Connor Bedard, and Connor Bedard said he was one of the smartest hockey players he'd ever played with. And we're seeing that now. And Joshua Waugh, the fact he's on that line says that it's his job to lose to start the season with the spot on this team. And he looked really, really good with Dvorak and Anderson. He's a young guy. Dvorak and Anderson both coming off very disappointing seasons. Maybe Waugh gives him a little bit of a spark. Marty St. Louis was very good at creating space for his line mates and sort of chipping pucks onto speed, which Josh Anderson's game is speed. So here's a guy who might be able to chip little pucks up to him and hit Anderson going full blast. So those were players that stood out. Lane Hutson on Thursday was like he was at those rookie games. Every time he touches the puck, he's exciting. Canadiens haven't really had a defenseman like that probably since PK Subban. Mike Matheson can be exciting at times, and Mike Matheson looked good today too, such a smooth skater. Another guy, look at Arbor Jack. The defense pairings, I'm heading into the season, I was thinking like David Savard's probably going to play with Lane Hutson if they make the team. The defense pairings are a little bit mixed up because of Caden Gooley having his appendix out. He's not at camp. But David Savard's been with Arbor Jackeye, and they've looked really good together as a pair. They've really fed off each other well, and they've looked good together also. So it's sort of, it's only scrimmages. The line of Dach and Newhook and Laine did not look great today, which isn't surprising considering Dach hasn't played since the second game last season when he blew out his knee, and Laine hasn't played since last December when he had shoulder surgery and then went into the NHLPA program. And Marty St. Louis spoke after the scrimmage saying he's got to be patient with these guys. Like, the talent is there for this line to really work, but when you miss that much time, it's hard to just come back. And it's going to take a little time, and he's going to be patient with them through training camp and the preseason games. So that was sort of the highlights. The highlight today was just finding out, okay, these are what the 4 lines look like they could be when the season starts.
Yeah, right. And I know it's only been 2 days, right? There probably isn't any player that looked out of place or looked like it didn't belong, but have there been any disappointments so far? Guys that maybe you were expecting to see more of, or, making too many mistakes for your takes?
I guess you could say Laine was a little bit of a disappointment, but again, it's we're talking about the rookie games and especially scrimmages and training camp. Veterans look at these games differently than guys trying to make the team, right? Like Joshua Waugh coming to this camp with a different mentality than a Patrick Laine or other guys. The guys who know they're going to have a spot on this team. These guys, the veterans, sort of slowly work themselves into scrimmages and preseason games, and their goal is to be ready on opening night. And once opening night starts and the season starts, fans and everybody will have no memory or recollection of what happened in these things, right? So people can overemphasize what happens in scrimmages and preseason games. The veterans know what they need to do to be ready. Having said that, that's why to see but Brendan Gallagher, mean, I've watched this guy for years. Every practice, every shift, every scrimmage, every time he steps on the ice, it's 100% effort. And we saw that again today. And he really looked good. He scored a goal. He sniped a really nice goal. So that's exciting, I think, for Canadiens fans, because, his contract's been a big talking point. He's got 3 more years left on that deal. He finished last season strong. He stayed healthy all of last season, which was a big accomplishment for him. So for that line, you've got Evans and Army are both in the final year of their contracts, so they really have something to prove this season moving forward, whether it's with the Canadiens or wherever they're going to be next to get a new contract. And Brendan Gallagher always has something to prove. As he said, he doesn't try to, as he said in the past, he doesn't really try to prove himself to people who don't believe in him. He tries to show the people who have believed in him that they're right. So that line could be really interesting to watch. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they do in the preseason. It was also interesting, saying that we talked about how he preferred playing on his off wing when he was a player. And it makes it a little bit easier for Gallagher to protect the puck in his own zone coming out and get away that shot. It's, shooting from the opposite wing. That's what Laine does also. Can be effective, and Gallagher scored. The goal he scored today was a snipe shot. It was a goal scorer's goal, and you don't see Gallagher get a lot of those, right? Most of his goals travel a foot or two while he's lying on his back getting cross-checked.
Exactly. No, that's it. Dirty goals, But you know what? I love hearing that Gally's still in shape, because he's, I'm 24 years old, right? I grew up with Gally. He's been a staple of this franchise. I hope he continues to be, right? He, like you mentioned, he is the heart, the engine. I think he's crucial to this team, and I hope that when he does retire, because his brand of hockey is not sustainable. Let's be honest, you can't get cross-checked 50 times a game for 82 games and expect to have a long career. When he does retire, I really hope the Canadiens give him a spot somewhere within the organization. He has to stay involved. Like, we need this guy to be involved with the team moving forward, even if he's not playing, right?
No, he's always in shape. But his body has been so banged up and so many different injuries. Last season's the first time in several years that he's been healthy the whole year. But again, I said he looks lighter this season. We'll see. I'm looking forward to talking to him tomorrow and finding out if maybe he changed his offseason training regimen. But you're right. A guy like Paul Byron, right? Byron wasn't with the Canadiens as long as Gallagher, but very similar type of player, right? The small guy, had to battle for everything he ever had, took all the whacks and hacks and everything else to get where he was. And he's really thrived quickly in his role in player development. Owen Beck spoke about how much Byron helped them last season. Rob Ramage also said how much he helped Owen Beck last season. Another fact of how they've changed, Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes have changed the development and added so many more people to the development program, where before it was only Ramage and Frankie Bouillon, who were both defensive. Yeah. They were the only two guys they had in their development. Now, you got Vinny Lecavalier there. You've got Paul Byron there. You've got guys who were forwards. And Byron, Owen Beck was telling me at the development camp, like, Byron didn't mince words. Like, he was hard on Beck when he had to be. But he said it wasn't like he wasn't chewing me out, but he was just telling me, you can't do this. Don't do this, do this type of thing. But he said he was very straightforward with them and very honest with them. And if you talk with hockey players, when it comes to being coached, the main thing they want is guys to be honest with them. And you'll see, John Tortorella has, fans think he's a horrible coach and whatnot, but there's players who played with him, including Marty St. Louis, who loved playing for him. Josh Anderson loved playing because you know where you stand with him. He's always going to be honest with you. And Paul Byron seems to have carried that into player development. And for Brendan Gallagher, if he wants to, maybe he just wants to go to BC and play golf after he retires, but I don't think so. He's got hockey in him. He's got married this summer. He married a woman from Saint Julie, so he's got some roots now here in Quebec and Montreal, more roots even than just as a player. So it'll be interesting to see what he decides to do once he hangs it up. But I agree. That you're not making a mistake by keeping Brendan Gallagher in your organization. I think it's a must.
Now, speaking of injuries, this team has been plagued for I don't know how many years now with injuries, constantly losing players. And this year started with Caden Gooley. Actually, it started with Raphaël Harvey-Pinard. We'll get to that later. But Caden Gooley, appendicitis right before training camp, just awful timing. He's set to miss pretty much all of training camp, maybe the start of the season. He'll be reevaluated, I think, next week. But the fact that Caden is not there to start training camp leaves a room, a spot for other defensemen to show up, right? He's not going to be playing in those preseason games, leaving that spot for other guys, maybe to, hey, I'm here, I can play, right? Is there a defenseman that you're looking at that maybe could make the most out of that opportunity? I'm not saying dethrone Gooley, right, when he comes back, but maybe show more than he would have otherwise.
Well, Justin Barron. I mean, here's a guy that they're sort of in the same situation with him as they were with Caden Primo last season. If they want to send him to Laval, they got to place him on waivers. So
exactly,
if there's a guy who's going to be the seventh defenseman, it's him and Jaden Struble are two guys. I think. Like I think Logan Mayu and I think Lane Hudson both are going to make this team to start the season. So now you got to battle for these guys. So Justin Barron's a guy who has to, like, he came here in the Lehkonen trade, a former first-round pick by Colorado, right? He hasn't been able to crack the lineup on a really bad team. You know, the Canes have been horrible defensively, and he hasn't been able to get a spot. And other guys have passed him by, Jaden Struble being one of them, and Arbor Jacki, an undrafted player. So I think Barron's a guy who I'll be watching at camp to see if he can finally sort of break through and get that spot on the roster this season. And just to backtrack just a little bit, when we're talking about players who stood out, I failed to mention Juraj Slafkovsky, who was probably the best player on the ice yesterday. And it was interesting. I had an interesting chat with him after the scrimmage yesterday, just about, you know, coming here as such a young guy and all the pressure. And he was talking about, you know, how he lived by himself at age 15 in Finland when he went to go play over there for a U16 team, and just how that made him grow up very fast and how it helped him get ready for everything that's come here in Montreal. And he was also sort of funny. He was talking about how, you know, people talk about the Montreal media and that, and he was saying the Montreal media, excuse me, is nothing compared to the Slovak media. I mean, it's all Uri all the time over there. Talking with Philip Massara about him today, about Slafkovsky, and he said Slafkovsky's like the biggest star in his country right now. He's huge. As big as he is in Montreal, he's even bigger over there. And he was mentioning, you know, Massara had said at the development camp or rookie camp, saying, you know, Slafkovsky has a new apartment, and it's a nice 4-bedroom apartment. And apparently this is big headlines in Slovakia. So he's bought this huge place, and then Slafkovsky said yesterday, it's actually only 3 bedrooms. It's not that big of a place, but it became a big deal over there in his home country.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah. A 20-year-old is the national hero, essentially. That's crazy.
Imagine, I mean, I've got 2 kids in their early 20s. They both still live at home. They're both still going to university. But, like, imagine sending your kid to go live by himself at 15. And I asked Slafkovsky, was it harder on your mother than you? And he said, oh, yeah. He said, when I left, I was like, see ya, bye. But once he got there, he realized just how, you know, living by himself and cooking by himself. And he said the team he played for, they didn't have any laundry facilities at the rink. So he had to bring his sweaty hockey gear back, wash it in his apartment, I guess in the sink, because he didn't have a washing machine or a dryer, and hang the stuff up so it would be dry in the morning when he went back out. So he's gone from that to, that's what, 5 years ago, to where he is now, signing a multi-million-dollar contract and living in, as he says, it's a nice apartment in Montreal. It's not what it was, what the media in his home country built it up to be.
No, that's it. Wow. What a specimen. This kid is, he blows me away every day. I remember when I was 15, you know, you can't leave me alone when I'm 15. I'm going to do some stupid stuff.
You know what? He's just a really affable, he's a fun guy to be around. Like, even with the media, like, he jokes with us and he laughs with us. And, you know, he doesn't hold grudges in the media. I mean, I wrote a column last year saying, you know, he didn't look like he was ready for the NHL and maybe he needs to go back. And I asked him about that yesterday. And he said, yeah, I was lost on the ice my first season and the first 20 games last season. He says, I knew I could play. He said, I didn't forget how to be a hockey player. It's just I couldn't get it going. And he said a lot of that was just confidence. He just lacked the confidence. And I think once they put him, Marty St. Louis put him on the line with Suzuki and Caulfield, that confidence grew. And we saw it grow game by game by game by game. And now coming into this season, and he showed it in the screen, he is a really confident, excuse me, like he's really confident and ready to really try and dominate this season. We asked what his goals were for the season. He said points for himself. He didn't say how many points, and wins for the team. And he said they go hand in hand, because the more games we win probably means the more points I'm getting. So he's a really likable, it's easy to forget he's only 20 years old. And I asked him that also. Are there times you need to remind yourself you're only 20? Like, most 20-year-olds are not playing in the NHL. You know, people are comparing him with his buddy Massar, who he grew up with, thinking that Massar is some kind of a bust. Massar's not a bust. He's 20 years old. He played junior last year. He's going to play in the AHL this year. If he doesn't make it, like his path is probably to, if he's going to make it to the NHL, it's like 3 years from now. And that's a normal path. He'll be 23 at the time. That's a normal path for a hockey player. But Juraj Slafkovsky is not your normal hockey player.
Not at all. Not at all. Now, Stu, I'm really glad that you brought up Justin Barron, because I was going to bring him up anyways. I want to bring up his stats here for a second, because, you know, he was drafted 25th overall for a reason. You look at the profile, that's like your typical right-handed defenseman that you're hoping to get, right? A 6'2", 202 pounds, mobile right shot. That's what you want, right? That's what you gave up Arturi Lehkonen for. Like, they have high aspirations, and rightfully so. You look at his time with Halifax, right? That's 112 points in 186 junior games, roughly 0.6 point per game. Excellent. Very good for a defenseman, right? The AHL, 51 points in 107 AHL games, roughly 0.48, right? A point for every 2 games, let's just say. In the NHL, 30 points in 94 games. That's about 0.3 point per games. There has been a regression instead of a progression. And you mentioned this year is boom or bust. He is not, he is waiver eligible. So he cannot be sent down. And the Habs don't want to lose him for free. They might have to trade him. Like, this is it. This is it for Justin Barron. He's got to prove. So what are you hoping he shows in the following scrimmages and the preseason games to actually secure a spot? Because Marty's not just going to give it to him. He's got to earn it, right?
But I mean, at this point, as I said, it's similar to Primo last year. Like, unless they can pull off some kind of a trade before the season, they're not going to send them down, because somebody's going to claim him, because he's only 22 years old. We're talking about Masarbi. He's a young guy. The skill is there. And I think the problem with him is exactly what Slafkovsky said his problem was: confidence. I think he just lacks confidence. He lacks confidence with the puck. He lacks confidence without the puck. He looks nervous. 2 years ago at training camp, they basically almost handed a job to him on a platter to start the season. I think he was the only guy who played every preseason game. They wanted him to make the team. I mean, Kent Hughes wants to make the trade. He made look good too, right? He gave up Arturi Lehkonen. Lehkonen goes and wins the Stanley Cup scores the winning goal at Colorado. This is the guy you got. You want this guy to do well. That's right. But he just he didn't do it. They gave him every opportunity to make the team 2 seasons ago to training camp. And he just never grabbed hold of that. And he got sent down. And then he's struggled. That probably hurt his confidence a bit too. When you can't make the team on one of the worst teams in the NHL, that's giving opportunities to young guys to make the team, like with Jaden Struble last year. So I think that impacted his confidence, and I think that's one thing he really needs to work on. But again, I don't see the Canadiens making a trade at this point before the season starts. I would imagine during the off season that his name has come up in trades, whether it's Kent Hughes asking other teams if they'd be interested, or other teams asking if he's available. I think he's like, again, I'd be surprised if he's not with the team to start the season. He might be the 7th guy. They might rotate defensemen in and out. I mean, there's a possibility they might even play 7 defensemen some games with Lane Hudson and sort of rotate guys through. But he's a guy that he's really got to step forward in this training camp and in the preseason and show why he was a first-round draft pick.
That's it. I think too many people already have thrown in the towel on Barron. I'm not one of them. I think he's got the profile right. He's got everything. He's got the tools. He just needs to put them together. And like you said, have the confidence. It's all up here. And that's the case for most players, right? Like,
as Slafkovsky said, I mean, he was very honest. He said, I felt I was lost. Like, it's just, he didn't forget how to play hockey. It's just at the NHL, everything is so much faster, and you got to process everything faster and move your feet quicker, and your brain has to work faster. Everything has to work faster, and it's a huge adjustment. And it's not easy. I mean, it wasn't easy for the number 1 overall pick in the draft, so it's not easy, and it's harder for a defenseman breaking into the league than a forward. So for Justin Barron, there's reasons why he's struggled, but as I said, other defensemen with less of a pedigree than him have moved ahead of him on the depth chart, and it's up to him to now show that Kent Hughes made a good trade when he traded Arturi Lehkonen.
That's it. Now, I want to go back to something else that you said as well in regards to the apparent second line, right? Kirby Dach, Patrick Laine, Alex Newhook at the moment. To me, this line is crucial for this season, right? The Habs have not had a proper second line in years, and they could actually have one this year. Granted, these three guys played a combined 77 games last year, right? You mentioned they're not like they have to get back in the groove, and they have to build that chemistry. These guys haven't played together, right?
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to follow them. But so far, you say that they're kind of feeling each other out still. You know, it's not quite clicking just yet, right?
No, and as Marty said, we said, I mean, they've missed a lot of time. They're not just going to come right in and work right away. But I can see those three guys working well together. As Marty said, you know, Doc's great at transporting the puck through the neutral zone and gaining zone entry. Laine's got the big shot, right? That's his game. Newhook's fast. He can win puck battles in the corners. The other thing that works well for that line is Dach shoots left and Newhook shoots right. And they're both not very good on faceoffs. Newhook's career faceoff winning percentage is like 46 or between 41 and 46. I looked it up earlier. I forget exactly. And Dach is in the 30s, which is surprising for a big guy who struggles so much on faceoffs. But the fact they both shoot different ways mean they can take faceoffs on their strong sides only. Like they can, whatever side the faceoff is on, they can rotate. And that's what they did in the scrimmage today. You know, I asked Newhook about it afterwards, and he talked about, you know, some people don't think faceoffs are important. He does. I know coaches do. He says the more faceoffs you win, the more you control the puck, and especially in the offensive zone, you can create plays off of faceoffs if you win them. So that's another reason why this line, I think, can work. He's got two guys who aren't. Dach prefers to play center. He spoke about that at the golf tournament. He feels his skills are better suited for there. He can, you know, he's rangy guy, and I agree. I mean, you watch him carry the puck through the neutral zone and cut from side to side. He creates a lot of space for his teammates. So if he can create space for Laine with that shot, but again, I think the face-off thing with both of them shooting different ways, I think is can help them, because the two of them together, or individually, I should say, have really struggled on face-offs throughout their career.
And PSA for the players: stop hitting Kirby in the face.
Oh, first shift.
Right out loud. Like
first shift of the scrimmage on Thursday, he gets a stick in the face. And then today, I think it was RDS tweeted the video. He gets taken out in the boards and falls awkwardly. And it's like, man, oh man, this guy. I mean, this, you know, back to his days in Chicago with the broken wrist, like he's been injury prone since the start of his career. And that hit that he took from Tenorti last season that blew out his knee didn't look like that big of a hit. And, you know, I spoke with Doc about it at the golf tournament. He said he sort of blamed himself a little bit because he thought he was closer to the boards. And he also thought there was glass. Like he thought he was further along the boards and he was going to bounce off the glass, but it was the bench, right? So he went right over the bench. So he said he sort of blamed himself a little bit for not being as aware as he probably should have been of where he was on the ice. But yeah, I mean, every time he gets, you know, whatever, the high stick you could tell he didn't look happy after he got the high stick. It was an accidental one. It was a puck battle. The stick came up, and he didn't look happy today either when he got taken out in the boards. But it's hockey, right? And as I mentioned, young guys in this camp are battling for a job. So, you know, you got Kirby Dach coming in on you, and you're a defenseman. You want to show management, I can handle this big body. I can play him physically. I can ride him into the boards. And that's what happened today. And Dach fell awkwardly, but luckily he wasn't injured again.
Just the unluckiest guy. That's unbelievable. Fingers crossed, healthy season, 82 games. Please.
Oh, I felt so bad for him last season. I'd walk into the press box, and first seat to the left, there's every game. There's Kirby Dach. It was like his season ticket. You know, I asked him actually at the golf tournament, are you thinking about going in the press box, grabbing that chair, and just throwing it off when there's nobody in the Bell Center? And he sort of laughed, and he said, no. He said, everything in life happens for a reason. And to his credit, he's taken positives out of what was such a negative situation. He talked about how his teammates really helped him, how David Savard really helped him, because Savard was injured early last season also and spent a lot of time with him. And then Dvorak was injured later in the season, and they spent a lot of time together. He talked about how his mom came and lived with him for a few weeks to, you know, help him get groceries and do stuff like that. The coaches involved him in video sessions and game planning sessions, which he really appreciated. And he learned, you know, what goes into a game plan, and learned a lot of stuff that he said can help him. And he said, watching from the press box, he said, so it was nice to hear him, like, of such a negative season, that he's looking at the positives of it and saying that, yes, I was able to develop and improve as a player, even though I didn't play by everything I experienced. So that chair will still be in the press box. He's not going to throw it throw it out.
Wow.
Hopefully he's not back in it again this season.
No. That's it. Don't go back. Don't go back. Stay on the ice, please. Wow. Well, listen, Kirby Dach might not feel lucky enough to go to Playground, but maybe you are. Okay, maybe you are. So step into the world-renowned poker experience at Playground, where free food and drinks at cash game tables, a bad beat jackpot that is over $2.1 million. Weekly promotions, daily tournament, and unmatched customer service awaits you. Why play anywhere else? Located just minutes away from downtown Montreal. Tried my best, Tony, here. Across the Mercier Bridge, Playground. All right. So as it stands, unless there's any changes before the start of the season, first line should be the same. Caulfield, Suzuki, Slafkovsky. Second line, right? We talked about it. Line A, Dach, Newhook. Third line would be Joshua Roy, Christian Dvorak with Josh Anderson. Fourth line, Joel Armia, Jake Evans, Brandon Gallagher. Now that leaves two extra forwards in Michael Pezzetta and Alex Barré-Boulet, who was the quote-unquote biggest free agent acquisition in the offseason, right? So are those your extra forwards? What do you do with these two guys?
Yeah, I mean, Pezzetta has a unique role in that, he's a physical guy also, and he's going to give you everything he has every shift and hit everything that moves, and he's a great team guy, and he won't bitch or whine and complain if he's made a healthy scratch for 10 games in a row. So I think he's the perfect guy to be in that extra forward position. Well, it'd be interesting to see if they carry two extra defensemen, just because of what we mentioned earlier about Justin Barron having to clear waivers. And Barré-Boulet, I think he was signed for Laval. Like he's an AHL star, right? He's a guy, maybe he gets a chance with the Canadiens, maybe not, but he'll light it up. I think, playing in the AHL. And it's sort of interesting to look at the lines below that, and we get a sense of what like Laval could look like this season or in the future. Barré-Boulet was on a line with Heineman and Kapanen. I like Heineman as a player. He's a big forward and has a lot of, it's a numbers game in the NHL a lot of times, right? You got to find the spot. Then you had Kidney between Tuck and Jackeye. That could be a line looking at the Laval this year also. You had Beck with Massar and Pezzetta. Beck is a guy who is he's, in my opinion, the forward closest to playing in the NHL for the Canadiens. I think he's ready. And Rob Ramage spoke about that the other day when we spoke with him too. Like, he carries himself like an NHLer already. And it was interesting too. He said, Ramage said he invited Beck to development camp, even though he's sort of beyond that stage in his career. And he asked him if he would come because he wanted him to be a leader there. And he lives not too far away in Ontario. And he said there was no pushback at all. He said, yeah, no problem, I'll be there. So that shows you what the Canadiens think about this guy, is that they wanted him at development camp just to, they know who they have. He wasn't there, but they wanted to have him around as as sort of a leader for this young group. So that speaks volumes. And, watching today, I was talking about, Dach and Newhook struggling on faceoffs. And watching Owen Beck today taking faceoffs, he's so good. He was snapping them back off of Newhook and Dach and NHL players. That's another skill that he has. But when you talk with him, here's a guy who was the Scholastic Player of the Year in the OHL. He's just you talk to him, he's a pleasure to talk to. He's a really smart kid. He's a nice kid to talk to, and he's a really solid 200-foot hockey player. He's right on the verge of making the NHL. I don't think they're not going to keep him as an extra forward here. They'll put him in the well and play the hell out of him down there. Yeah. But if and or when, in the case of the Canadiens, it's when there are injuries, I think I see him being called up ahead of Barré-Boulet, because Barré-Boulet is more of a, he's sort of a proven AHL commodity. He was one of those guys who just can't make that next jump to the NHL. But I think the Canadiens will give him a chance also at some point. I said injuries will come up along the way, but for Owen Beck, he's watching him today, and you're talking about guys who stood out. I like watching him play hockey. He's just a really, really good hockey player. MVP at the Memorial Cup last year. A lot of things to like about him. And as I mentioned earlier, he spoke, Paul Barron did a lot of good work with him last year also. And Pezzetta, Massar is not ready for the NHL. It's obvious. He knows that. As I mentioned earlier, he's probably a couple of 2-3 years away. And Pizzetta is Pizzetta. You know what you're going to get. He's going to go out there and hit everything that moves and fly around the ice. And if he needs to drop the gloves, he'll drop the gloves too.
That's it. And I echo your sentiment about Beck. We had him on the show, sick podcast, Recruits Draftcast with Grant McCagg. If you want to go check it out, we had Beck on the show. Blew me away. Just a fantastic young man. Truly a stand-up guy. I'm a big fan. But I brought up Barré-Boulet because he is waiver eligible. Now, I remember when he was with Tampa, he went on waivers, got claimed by Seattle, and then was put on waivers again and was reclaimed by Tampa again. So I'm wondering if Kent Hughes might be a little hesitant putting him on waivers. Because he might get claimed again, right? You just signed him as a UFA. You might want to see what he has before putting him down, right?
Yeah, and as I said, he was signed for Laval, in my opinion. Like, Laval's going to be a fun team to watch this season. There's going to be so many young guys. You want to surround them with some veterans. You want to surround them with some veterans who can play and are effective in the AHL. And he's a Quebec kid, right? So it's like there's a lot of reasons why they brought him here. But I think when they signed him, the main focus was for him to play in Laval, not to play for the Canadiens, and be, as I mentioned, Owen Beck being the leader at the development camp. Barré-Boulet is going to be the leader in Laval, a guy who's going to be there and show these guys. And also, they're going to look at him. He's a really good hockey player, right? He's a really good hockey player. Oh, yeah. But there's a lot of hockey players who it's like in baseball players, right? They can hit the ball in AAA, but they get to the majors and they can't hit major league pitching. There's a lot of guys who can score and put up points in the AHL and they can't do it when they get to the NHL level. Charles Hudon was a guy like that, right? And it's had him. So, but he's there to be a leader for these young guys, and the young guys on this team can look at him and say, man, this guy's a good hockey player and he didn't make it. Like, it just shows you how hard it is to make the NHL. And, Gallagher, I wrote a column this week. Gallagher had a speech at the development camp to the players, and he said, there's like 30 of you guys in this room. 3 of you are probably going to make the team eventually, and like make the team and stay with the team. It's one thing to make the NHL; it's harder to stay in the NHL, and that's like an eye opener for a lot of these guys. Like, with the prospects the Canadiens have now, they certainly hope it'll be more than 3. But if you go back previous years, they were lucky if they got 3 guys out of a development camp that went on to have success in the NHL. So for Barré-Boulet, there's a lot of reasons why that signing makes sense. And I think the leadership point, the fact he's going to put up points and make Laval, they want Laval to get into the playoffs for these guys, the experience playoff thing. It's going to be, Pascal Vincent mentioned, the same as JF Houle mentioned at the start of last year. It's going to be tough the start of the season. Laval, they're going to have a lot of young guys. Pro hockey is a big jump. Owen Beck spoke about that. Like, he's going to be living by himself for the first time, cooking his own meals. So like Slafkovsky did when he was 15 years old. But it's a big jump from junior or NCAA hockey to play even in the AHL, never mind the NHL. So there's going to be some growing pains along the way. But Barré-Boulet is sort of the veteran guy to be around there and help the younger guys come along through that path. And as you mentioned, the waiver thing obviously comes into play also, right? If they call them up and then you send them down, probably going to lose.
Get back. Yeah, exactly. And now, I mentioned earlier in the show, Raphaël Harvey-Pinard, who broke his leg, even before training camp. Poor guy. Now, when he comes back, that's another piece of the puzzle that you got to figure out, because where do you fit him, right? Who gets bumped down? Do you put him on waivers? Like, he's going to add another layer of complexity there for Kent.
Yeah, and Harvey-Pinard, even if he was healthy, I don't see him making this team this year. He got his opportunity because of all of the injuries. Like, that year he got called up, there was so many injuries, and he took advantage of it, and he cashed in with a NHL contract. But at this point, we're talking about Justin Barron falling down the depth chart. Well, he's fallen down the depth chart on the forward list also. But another guy, if he does end up in Laval and clears waivers and goes to Laval, with the injury situation, they're going to put him there, I think, first, even if it's just on a conditioning stint to get him ready. But again, I think it's just a case of, making the NHL it's so difficult.
Oh yeah.
Anybody who's ever played hockey as a kid, I played hockey as a kid. I don't know if you see players, or I go watch midget AAA games. A buddy of mine's son played midget AAA a few years, and I went and watched this kid play. And there was a defenseman on the team. He's just a really stand-up, big stud defenseman. You've ever had this kid. Went to the Q, and he had a good career in the Q, got drafted, and now is having a hard time making an AHL team. And it's so difficult to make the NHL and stay in the NHL. And it's a numbers game too. You might be a defenseman, young defenseman. Jaden Struble only got called up last year to experience being around the team. They didn't expect he was going to play. They were going on that California trip. Yeah. Kent Hughes called him up. He just wanted him to be around the team for an extended period. They're on the road for 10 days or whatever. Wanted him to be around the team, practice with the team, get to know the players, be on the road, experience what it's like to be an NHL player. And then Jordan Harris got hurt. And because they're in California, they're not calling anybody else up for the game. So they put him in the lineup, and he made the most of his opportunity and he played. Now, if they didn't invite Struble to that trip to experience that, and if Jordan Harris doesn't get hurt, we probably don't know. We're not talking about Jaden Struble. He's probably just a guy in Laval down the depth chart. Maybe make it in the NHL, maybe you won't, but it's a numbers game, and it's a case of making the most of the opportunity when you get it. And he got the opportunity, made the most of it. Joshua was getting the opportunity now, it looks like, from what the lines are set up, and it's up to him to make the most of it. Joshua was a number one overall pick in the Quebec junior draft, who sort of coasted when he got into the QMJHL. He wasn't really in great shape. He just, until that point, he got by just on talent. He was such a talented hockey player as a kid. He got by, and it was an eye opener for him in junior. And then he got traded from the team that drafted him. I think it was St. John Sea Dogs, I think it was. And then he got together, and the Habs got him as a late round pick because of that, because there was questions about work ethic and whatnot. The skill was there. And to show you how far he came, playing for Canada at the World Juniors, killing penalties at the World Juniors, something he didn't even do with his junior team. And Connor Bedard saying he's one of the best players I've ever played with. So Joshua was a guy that I think I'm high on him. Like I watch him closely at scrimmage today. And I used to watch Sean Monahan focus on him on a lot of shifts when he was with the Canadiens. And he hardly ever made a bad decision with the puck. Hardly ever. And Joshua Waugh is not at Sean Monahan's level yet, as a guy who's played so many games in the NHL. But there are similarities there where when he has the puck, he makes smart decisions with it. And Marty St. Louis said today that he's also, you don't touch the puck that much in an NHL game. It's important to be a good player away from the puck. And he talked about how good Joshua Waugh is away from the puck. And one of Marty's favorite lines, you like to say, you hear it all the time if you listen to his press conference, there's a difference between a guy who plays hockey and a hockey player.
Yep. And
I asked him today, so is Joshua Waugh a hockey player? And he said he's getting there. Like he says, he's noticed him right from last season. Like being a hockey player is smart decisions, right? Not being playing well away from the puck. He does all that, and he's got a lot of offensive skills when he has the puck also. So I think Joshua Waugh could turn out to be a very good hockey player for the Canadiens.
I do too. He's something special. I have family in Sherbrooke who went to go see him play, almost every game, and they kept telling me, like, he's the real deal. He's got it. He's got it.
You got to wake up call young. I mean, if you're the number one draft pick in the Quebec Junior Hockey League, you've obviously lit it up every league you played in.
Exactly.
And some guys, Brendan Gallagher, the only reason he got drafted is because he works his butt off every shift. Some guys are just so talented and so good that they get drafted high because it's the talent level. And he got the wake up call early, and good for him. Mm-hmm. Good for him. And you watch him on the ice now, he works his butt off when he's out there.
It's funny. I was in university I graduated now, but when I was in Concordia, I had a class and I did a project with his former captain, actually, in Rimouski, Jeff Durocher. Shout out, Jeff, if you're watching. Right. He was a great guy, but he was telling me stories about Josh, about how, like you mentioned, he wasn't taking it seriously. And then he kind of got this kick in the ass. He woke up, and now you see what it's doing. It's really wonderful. I'm a big fan of his. Truly hope he makes it. Stu, in closing,
also when you go from being a number one overall pick in the Quebec Junior League to being a 5th round pick, 150th overall in an NHL draft, that's an eye opener, right? That's even though, and I was just looking it up here, and it was the St. John Sea Dogs who drafted him. I was right. And he had, he had 15 games, 9 goals, 8 assists, 17 points. The first season, he had 16 goals, 28 assists, 44 points in 60 games. Second season, 9 goals, 8 assists in 15 games, Then he gets traded to Sherbrooke, like you said. His last season in Sherbrooke, 66 games, 51 goals, 68 assists, 119 points. That's a guy who got the message, right?
Hello.
That's the guy who got the message. And that is the season after he was a 5th-round draft pick.
Yeah.
So he was like, okay, I'm going to show teams that pass me over and over and over and over that I'm a much better player than where I fell in the draft.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Now, Stu, I've taken a lot of your time, and I truly appreciate this. Has been a great conversation. In closing, I got one more for you. We spoke about waivers quite a bit. The Habs hold the 5th priority starting the season. So we know that, in training camps, a lot of cuts happen. A lot of good players end up on waivers. Obviously, we can't have any names. No one's on waivers at the moment. Do you think they could use their high priority, or are they happy with the group they have?
That's a really good question. I think what happens through training camp will play a role in that, is where they find out like where Joshua Wise or where these other guys are. But I really don't think so, because I don't think they really want to add another veteran to this team, like unless it's like a line, like a guy who can really score. But I don't know if guys like that aren't going to really come up on waivers. And the Canadiens have advanced past where they were in previous years, where they were picking up these guys on waivers just to fill a role on the 4th line, right?
Right.
Just they had a couple of guys last year just to fill a role, because they didn't have anybody ready to fill the role as a young player, and they didn't want to throw them into the NHL when they weren't ready, which doesn't help their development either. But I think now they've advanced. This is another step in the rebuilding process. I think they've advanced past where they need to take a guy off waivers just to fill a spot because they don't have a young guy ready enough. I think they have enough young guys now ready to compete for those spots. So, of course, it depends on like who to play. We don't know who would become available on waivers. But I'd be surprised. I don't think that's at the top of Kent Hughes's priority list right now, is looking to see who's going to become available on waivers. But as he likes to say, I'll do whatever helps our team advance and move forward in this rebuilding process. But the excitement around this team, like the players are excited. The catchphrase at the golf tournament was "in the mix," right? Jeff Gordon, Ken Hughes, Jeff Molson, excuse me, all singing the same song, right? We want to be in the mix for the playoffs. And as I wrote in a column, I think that's a fair way to look at this season. Last year, they didn't even want to mention playoffs. Now you've taken a step where, we think we're good enough to be in the mix. We're not sure, and they're not sure. Nobody's sure. Like, there's a lot of question marks. Are they going to stay healthy? Will Kirby Dach stay healthy? Is Samuel Montembeault a legitimate number 1 goalie in the NHL? What are the growing pains going to be for the young defense? Is Patrick Laney going to become the player he was in Winnipeg? There's so many question marks. But if the answer to all those questions is yes, they got a good chance to make the playoffs. The odds of all those questions being answered yes is not great. But just being like Nick Suzuki at the golf tournament, I asked him, how does he juggle being the captain who wants to make the playoffs and thinks the team is good enough to make the playoffs and wants to send that message to the players, while also balancing his captain management's goal or view, which is might not be ready just yet. So that's a sort of a line that Suzuki wants to make, but the players are excited. You can tell talking to them. They think they're good enough to make the playoffs. Fans are really excited. Like, at the top of the show, we were saying, like, I got showed up the Bell Center this morning. No the parking lot was pretty full. There's construction outside there also. So people thinking of going tomorrow or Sunday, leave early. There's construction on the street right outside where the practice rink is. But fans just seem, really excited. And I was talking with, I was in the Canadiens boutique after the game there, and they have all the Cole Caulfield number 22 sweaters on sale for half price if anybody's looking for a deal. But I was talking with a guy in the boutique, Dean Clark, actually a buddy of mine that works in there, and he was saying the fans coming in there are excited. They're buying stuff, like they're looking forward to the season. I think there's reason to be excited. It doesn't mean everything's going to work out. I've written and I've stated before on the podcast, I don't think they're good enough to make the playoffs this season. I think they're another year away from being a legitimate playoff contender, but they're going to be exciting to watch. And the training camp so far has been exciting to watch also. So I'm looking forward to the scrimmage tomorrow, 11:15 tomorrow. There's another scrimmage at 11:15 on Sunday. And the Canadiens have set it up pretty well. There's 3 teams, and the 2 teams who have the best record after tomorrow's scrimmage play in the final scrimmage, and the worst team has to practice. So there's a little bit of incentive. If you don't want to have to skate through one of Marty's practices on Sunday and you'd rather play in a scrimmage, then you might want to go out a little bit harder than you even were at this point.
Not bad. I like it. Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette, we thank you so much for your contribution every Friday. You are the best. Enjoy the rest of training camp, my friend.
Okay, have a great weekend.
Take care. All right. This just about wraps up our Friday show, but I'm missing one sponsor, guys. And that is Sports Buff. We got to give love to Sports Buff. All right. Shop all your sports license apparel lifestyle, including hoodies, caps, and tees of your favorite teams from all major leagues at sportsbuffshop.com. If you use code SICK10, you get 10% off all their items. That's how generous these people are, right? They're the best. Sportsbuff.com, code SICK10. All right. Thank you for allowing me to fill your phone or your TV or your computer, however you're watching us. Maybe you're listening. You don't want to see my face. That's fine. I don't take offense. We appreciate your support as always. Tony will be back on Monday. Until then, take care, everyone. Have a good night.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBita.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.